Hey, my name is Jan. I'm an OpenText solution consultant, and in today's video, we are going to talk about how to use fcli, so the Fortify command line, in combination with the Software Security Center and ScanCentral SAST. So I have a couple of interesting use cases that I want to share that might be very helpful. And before we do that, we will also cover a couple of basic things like how to use environment variables, how to create a session. But as I said, the most part of the video is related to some use cases in combination with the Software Security Center and ScanCentral SAST. And if you want to skip right away to a section where you are most interested in, please feel free to use the timestamps. And if you have any questions, anything that is unanswered, anything that you would like to see in future videos, please feel free to use the comment section down below. All right, with that, let's get started with topic number 1, which is how to use environment variables. For those of you who are not familiar with fcli yet, I highly recommend having a look at our documentation, because this is also the place where you can find more information about environment variables. And to access the documentation, you just simply go to our GitHub page of fcli, and then we have here under usage the documentation. Then you just select the version that you would like to use, and then you have all the table of contents here. And as I said, here you can also learn more about the environment variables, so what fcli has, what not, and how to use it. And what we are going to cover in this video is especially the default values for CLI options, because this can be really helpful. So with that, let's get right into our console. And just that you know, I'm working on a Mac, so it could be that the syntax might vary from system to system, but the basics should be the same. So please keep that in mind when you see all the commands on my screen. But let's get started with how to use environment variables. So first of all, there are a couple of different environment variables. One use case that I see a lot of times is to use them to set the default SSC URL, for example, or the default SSC user or SSC password, or the ScanCentral SAST authentication token, the client authentication token. This is one of the most use cases that I see. And to do that, it's pretty simple. So let me paste that command in here. So as I said, this is Mac-based. Please feel free to change that according to your OS that you're using. But in my case, what I'm doing here, I'm exporting the fcli default SSC URL, and this is the URL I'm using. And if I execute that, it is set in my environment variables, so I can also echo them out, of course, and see, okay, this is working. And this is pretty useful, because when we get to our next topic, which is the session management, so how to create a session, we don't need to enter this URL anymore when we want to create a session to the Software Security Center. But before I show you what it looks like, just a couple of general instructions. So as I said, fcli is session-based. That means every time you want to connect to a Software Security Center, to ScanCentral SAST, Fortify on Demand, or any other component, you need to create a session. So that means when I type in fcli -help, you can see we have these different commands that we can use. And for example, if we want to create a session for SSC, we can type in fcli SSC and then -help. Then we can see, okay, here's the session component. That means we can also type in fcli SSC session -h, and then we can see, okay, here we can log in, log out, or have a look at what kind of sessions are currently active, because it's not only possible to have one, you can also have multiples, name them differently, but in our case we keep it simple, just with the default session. And to simply log in, you can do the following. First of all, what we have fcli, then we have our component, the SSC session login. And then we can also type in the help to get everything that we need, because there are a couple of things that we need. First of all, of course, pretty obvious, a username and a password. That's option number one. The other option would be to use tokens. And then we have a couple of other things that we can include or need to include. First of all, we have the URL for the SSC, or for example, the ScanCentral SAST URL. And then we have also things like the timeout that we can set. But let me show that to you in a working example. We clear that out. So we have the fcli SSC session login. And the first thing that we usually need to do is to type in the URL. The thing is, because we already set the default environment variable for the SSC URL, we don't need to do that. I just leave it there to show you what you need if you don't want to use the environment variables, but you don't have to use them. The next thing that we need is user. So in my case, it's jvinant, and then we have a password. And you can either leave it blank like this, then it will ask you, then fcli will ask you for the password, or you can directly type it in like so. It's up to you how you want to do that. And that's pretty it when it comes to how to create a session to the Software Security Center. But if you want to also combine, if you want to have a session for the Software Security Center and ScanCentral SAST to do combined actions, then you also need to put in the client authentication token from ScanCentral SAST. And you can do that by simply typing in -c, and then you can either leave it blank and it will ask you for the token, or you can immediately provide it in here like this. So that is the usual way how to log in for SSC and ScanCentral SAST. But because we already did our work with the environment variables, for example, with the URL, and in preparation of this video, I also set the password and the client authentication token. The only thing that we now need to do is the following. You just need to say, okay, fcli SSC session login -u for username and jvinant. And if I do that, it will automatically pick up the URL as well as the password and the client authentication token in the background, because we already set the environment variables. That's pretty useful. But now we can see, okay, our session has been established. This is the default session. And as you can see, we have SSC as well as ScanCentral SAST in here, which is pretty useful because we only have one session for SSC and ScanCentral SAST. If you want to log out, you can also simply type in fcli session logout. That's really recommended if you are at the end of a workflow, for example, then you just simply log out by using this command. In my case, I'm not doing that because I just want to show you how it looks like. But because we need this session for the further steps, I don't want to log out yet. And before we get into the use cases with the Software Security Center, one thing I also want to mention is how to use tokens. Because as I said, this is one option that you can do. You can use the SSC login using a password and username. But the other option that you also can do is to use a token that you generate through the SSC web UI or fcli if you want to do that. And which token type to use depends on what fcli commands you want to run. So that means, for example, CI token allows access to many but not all fcli SSC commands. And the automation token allows access to all fcli commands, restricted by the user role. But let me show that to you in an example. So let me copy paste my command in here. So for the creation of a token, the thing that you need to do is, first of all, go to fcli SSC, and there we have the module access control. And inside of that, we can create a token. And in this case, we decide to use the type automation token, and we just give it a description. And also we can set, okay, this will expire in 1 day, and I'm using my username. And the last thing here is that we store the response back in this variable, which can be used later. That means if we execute that, we can see, okay, we already have here our token that we can use. And because we already stored that in the variable called my token, we can also use that to log in into SSC. So that means we can create a fcli SSC session login -t for token, and then we simply use the REST token instead of the username and the password. So this is pretty useful. So in this case, it will also, usually it requires the URL as well, but because we already set that in the variables, there's no need to do that. But usually you have to import the URL here as well. But yeah, that's just the second option when it comes to how to log in or how to create a session for the Software Security Center. Now let's get into the really interesting and fun part, which is how to work with fcli in combination with the Software Security Center. In the second part, we will also cover ScanCentral SAST use cases, but first let's focus on how to use fcli with the Software Security Center. And the first thing that you can do is also to check out the different options that you have. So you can go into fcli SSC and then type in -h, and then you could see, okay, what you can actually do. And the first thing that we can do, which is pretty helpful, is to list all of our applications. And for that, we just simply need to type in fcli SSC app ls, and then we get an overview about all our applications. That's pretty useful. We can also do the same thing for application versions. So that means if we type in fcli SSC application version AV ls, we can also see what kind of application versions we have. And as you already know, we can also start querying some data in here. So as you can see, we have different attributes right here with the ID, the name, the issue template name, created by, and so on. And what we can basically do is we can filter out what kind of data we want to see. So first of all, I have an example for just filtering out everything which has the application name logistics in it. And if I execute that, we can see, okay, these here are 2 applications with the name logistics in it. That's pretty helpful already. But if you want to get a little bit further, I highly recommend having a look at the JSON output, because there are like every query field that you can use in here. So if you just type in -o JSON, you can see everything that you can filter on, which is pretty interesting. So as you can see here, there are a ton of more options that you can use. But yeah, I just used the simple name just to demonstrate how to use it. I also have one other query that I want to share as well. In this case, we have the issue template name. In my case, I only have one application using the template PCI version 4.0. So just as a showcase how to use the querying function within fcli. Another really powerful and interesting thing that you can use is you can easily use the output of one fcli command to generate a list of other fcli commands. Let me show you one example. So let me copy paste that in here, and then I will explain what it does. So in general, here we have the command fcli SSC application version ls. So this will list every application version that we have. So let me quickly do that you see what it does. Oh, sorry, I forgot to remove the output. So this is our application version overview. But one thing that we can do is that we can create, as I said, we can create a second fcli command based on this command right here. And for example, if we want to do an purge artifacts, which is a function that you can use in the application versions, for everything that is older than 30 days for all of our application versions, we can simply do the following. So let me show it to you one more time. So what we can do here is we have the same command as before, but now what we do, instead of just giving us a list here of the output, we have the output to be an expression. So that means it will generate a new expression for every item it has in this list. That means it will do an fcli SSC application version purge artifacts, and then it uses the ID of every single line that we can see here, and it will also add the option when older than 30 days. And of course, here you can you also need to insert a tab or an enter to generate a new line. And if we execute that, we can simply see, okay, this will generate more fcli commands, and that's pretty useful. And as you can see, it generates just commands for all the application versions that we have here in our system. And one example where a customer of us used that is also really interesting to share. That's for ScanCentral SAST. So it's the ScanCentral SAST component, but it's the same procedure. That means the customer had the challenge that they had like over 600 scans in their scanning queue in ScanCentral SAST, and they instead of just cancel every scan manually in the queue, they used this expression to filter out, okay, hey, show me please what kind of ScanCentral scans are active, and then give me a list of commands to actually cancel these scans. And that's pretty useful for that kind of use cases, as you can see. So you can easily use the output of one fcli command to generate a list of other fcli commands. Okay, so one of the last commands that I want to show you when it comes how to work with applications and application versions is one of the most powerful one. And this is the easiest way of creating application or application versions for you. So let me quickly copy paste the command in here. So what it does is basically we have fcli SSC application version create, and then we can create an application and an application version. You can also do just the application version, that's totally fine if the application already exists. And then what it does is it first of all looks if the application or application version already exists. Then it will fill out everything that we need when it comes to attributes automatically with our auto-required attributes. And then it will use the following issue template to create that application. So when I execute that, it will show me, okay, this is already existing in my web interface. So if I switch to my software security center, just give me a second, we can see under applications, we have our pizza application, and inside of our pizza application, we already have version 1 and version 2. Let's do the same command again, but instead of having version 1, let's say we want to have a version 3. And then you can see, okay, this automatically creates a new application version for us. And the power here is really when it comes to automatically create application and application versions. For example, when you have a new branch that you want to scan and you immediately want to set up an application using the name of the branch, for example. And you can see this has been created right now. And if we refresh the page here, you can see we have our version 3 and it's up and running. We could use that. And that's really, really powerful. So that's this is something that I see a lot of times when it comes to customer use cases. And one thing that I forgot to mention as well is, of course, you can use the name of the issue template, but you can also use an ID instead if you want to do that. So you can simply type in fcli SSC issue list templates, and then you will get a list of every template that is available. So you can also use the ID instead. That's also possible. With that, we can move on how to work with issues. That's also really interesting when it comes to giving you a high-level overview into CI/CD pipelines, for example. For that, you only need to type in fcli SSC issue count, and then you have the application version. So in my case, I'm using the application RWI in the version 1.0. And if I do that, I can immediately see how many critical high and low issues I have, how many of them are already audited. And that's pretty powerful if you want to have a high-level overview into your CI/CD system, for example. All right, so the next thing I want to show you in the Software Security Center is how to work with users and roles. So this is also really powerful. So the first thing that you can do is, of course, you can list all users. For that, we are using the access control component, and inside of there, we have the list users. And there you can see, okay, these are all the users on the system. And you can also do the same for roles as well. So instead of list users, we have list roles. And you can see we have a couple of different roles here. And then what you can do is, of course, you can create a new user. So in this case, we're doing that for a local user. So create local user. Then we have the email address, the first name, the last name. Then you can also set the password if you want to. And last but not least, we have the username. And let me execute that. So that is fine. We have now our new user. So if we list our users again, we can see we have our Fortify Unplugged 2 in here, which we can use to log in. So that's pretty powerful. So when it comes to the next topic, which is the usage of reports, there are also a couple of different things that you can do. First of all, you can have a look at fcli SSC report -help, because there you can see what's actually possible in here. And the first thing that I recommend that you can do is, of course, to list all the reports that are available. So that has been already submitted via fcli or the web interface. You can also see what kind of templates you have available for reports. But of course, one of the most common use cases when it comes to reports is to generate a report using fcli. And for that, you can use the SSC report create function. And there you specify the file extension, which is a PDF. And then we have a name. So in my case, I call it Fortify Unplugged demo. And because I already did that, let me change that to demo 2. And then we have the template. So in this case, template 3 means we have the application summary. And then we need to say, okay, for which application we want to do that. And if I execute that, you could see it is created. And we can also switch to our report section in the SSC and refresh the page. And we can see here is the report. So we can download it and use it. So that's pretty easy to do. And that's all I want to show you when it comes to reporting. Before we move on to the actions, there is one other powerful feature I want to show you, the fcli SSC REST call. So in general, of course, as always, you can use the help section within fcli to get more information about that. But what it actually does is you can think of this as a fallback for any Fortify SSC REST API endpoint that isn't yet directly covered by a dedicated fcli command. So compared to using a generic tool like curl, The fcli SSC REST call command gives you several advantages. For example, fcli automatically provides the necessary authorization headers from your current session, and it also handles API paging and output formatting for you, which makes things much easier. So let's look at a quick example. So according to the SSC REST API documentation, which you can see here, we can query for roles using the roles endpoint, this one here. So there we have the filter using the query parameter right here. So if we wanted to get details about our developer role, for example, you would run the following command in fcli. Let me quickly copy paste that. So as you can see here, we have fcli SSC REST call -x get. Then we have our endpoint right here, and then we use the filter to filter just for the developer role. And if we execute that, as you can see, we will get a JSON output with all the details for the role without having to manually managing authentication tokens or headers. So this is incredibly useful for custom scripting and for accessing newer SSC API features. The last and final thing I want to show when it comes to the Software Security Center are the so-called actions. Not only in SSC, also in other components, we have predefined actions that you can use. And we are also planning to have another video, especially on the actions, that we will show you how you can use them, how you modify them. But yeah, I just want to highlight a couple of different actions that have been really useful for a lot of customers out there. So first of all, before we start, if you want to learn more about the action, just type in fcli SSC action -help. And then you can see, okay, we have a couple of options here. If we want to list them, just do ls. And then we get a list of the already available options, actions, sorry, that we can use. And one of the most common actions I see customers using is, first of all, to check the policy. So that means here we have an action which is called check policy. And this will do a simple security policy check. So you can also have a look at the policy itself. If you type in fcli SSC action get check policy. So there you can see what it does. As I said, we will going to have another video on just actions inside of fcli. But to give you a high-level overview, what it does is, first of all, here you can see it will count like the different issues, and then it will give you a list of the new issues. And then we have our checks here. First of all, that are no critical issues allowed, or no new issues are allowed. And as I said, you can customize that to your own needs, but let me demonstrate that really simply by just running it. And for that, we only need to set the application version that we want to use. And if I do that, it will do all the different tasks in the background that I try to give you an overview right here. And we can see in this case, it actually failed because it has a couple of critical issues already included. There are also new issues, and also a couple of new critical issues, and that means the overall status failed. So the whole policy check was failed, which is pretty, so in this case, it's bad, but it's pretty useful if you have CI/CD pipelines where you want to quickly do a couple of checks and then accordingly fail the pipeline, for example, if there are new critical vulnerabilities. I can also show you one other example which will not fail, which is another application which is called 8ball, and where you can see, okay, there is no critical issue in general, nothing new, and also nothing new with the criticality critical. And that's just one example when it comes to the check policy action. This is really, really powerful and a lot of people using that. At the end, I have two other actions that are really popular. First of all, something that is called the application app version summary. And if I execute that, you can immediately see what it does. So it basically gives you a high level overview about your findings. So what kind of findings you have. Do you have just static code analysis? Do you also have dynamic analysis as well? And you can also see this is security auditor view. You can also have the quick view included here as well. And you can immediately see, hey, this was the last scan date, critical, high, medium, low count, all these things. And this is really, really powerful when it comes to summarize the scans in your CI/CD pipelines. Okay, the last action I want to show you for the Software Security Center has to do with the integration to GitLab. So a lot of you already know GitLab, which is really known for the vulnerability management. And if you want to integrate the Fortify data, the scanning data into GitLab, there is an inbuilt action that you can use to actually do that. So it's really simple to do. For that, you can use the fcli SSC action run and then the GitLab SAST report. And then you only need to set the application version that you want to use. And what it does is basically output the data in a JSON format that GitLab can understand. So you can easily import that into GitLab. And if we have a look at the file that was produced, you can see this is in the right format if you want to import that into GitLab. So that's really powerful if you want to use GitLab in combination with the Software Security Center. And with that, we are now moving on to the ScanCentral SAST section of this video. So first of all, one thing I want to mention is we are already logged in. So we already have our session established. That means we don't need to establish that one more time. And with that, we can start using fcli in combination with ScanCentral SAST. And if you want to have a look of what is possible, I highly recommend just typing in fcli as the SAST -help, and then you can immediately see, okay, what kind of options you have here. And one option to start off is actually what you can do here. As you can see here, we have the sensor. That means what we can do is we can have a look at all our sensors that are active, for example. We can also shut them down, of course, that's also possible. But that's just the first use case. Now let's dive into ScanCentral SAST. So before we start our first scan, I want to highlight some very useful commands for managing the ScanCentral client itself. So these are located under the fcli tool command. First, to ensure your tools are up to date, you can run just the following command, fcli tool definitions update. And when you execute it, you will see it will automatically search for the last update of all the different components, as you can see. And the next thing that you can do is to install the actual ScanCentral SAST client directly by using fcli. So this is great for setting up new build agents in a CI/CD environment, for example. And the command is fcli tool sc client for ScanCentral client install. And when you install it, you can actually see, in my case, it was already installed. But if not, it will automatically download it and install it. And as you can see, here is the path that you can use and also add to your system path to make things easier. But this is really useful if you want to install the ScanCentral SAST client itself. And finally, once the client is installed, you can use it to package your source code by using the run command. So for example, if you want to package the source code, which is in my case under dev and then Fortify AWS Java SDK demo, you can run the following command. fcli tool ScanCentral SAST client, then we have the run, and now I specify what I want to do. So I want to package. I don't have any build tool in this demo code base, and this is why I put in none. So here you can also do Maven, for example. So all the ScanCentral SAST commands apply here as well. And then you have the output for the package itself. So I just name it package.zip. And if you execute it, you can see that this will generate the package.zip that we can then use to actually start the scan. When we come to something that is actually really common within customer scenarios, then it is the setup and start of scans. And to do that, I simply just use an SSC action one more time to create a new application version, just that we have a completely fresh, a new application version of our application pizza. This time we have the V4, and we also do the same thing for V5. So this is already here. Now we can also switch to our web interface. Just let me log in. Just a second here. So if we go to our applications and to pizza, we can see now we also have the version 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So 4 and 5 is completely new. And if we go back to our command line once more, now we can actually start a scan. And to do that, I already prepared a little bit. So I'm currently in a directory where I packaged 2 small packages that I want to scan. So if you are not familiar on how to do that, I highly recommend having a look at the ScanCentral SAST documentation, which is also linked in the description. There you find more instructions how to create these packages, and these packages can be used for ScanCentral SAST to start a scan. And to do that, we can simply use fcli for that. So let me paste my command in here and explain you what it does. So what we do here is we are using fcli ScanCentral SAST scan start. Then we say, okay, we want to have the file package1.zip, and we want to publish the results to our pizza version 4 that we just created. And last but not least, we also want to store everything that we will get back when we start the scan, like the ID of the job, in a variable called scan1. So if you are already familiar with fcli, you know it is possible to store information in variables that we can then use later. And I will also explain you why we do that, because this is the first scan I want to start. And if I after that immediately start the second scan with the second package, just using another version, and also storing another variable, we see, okay, these both scans have been requested. And we can actually use fcli to wait for until the scan is finished. And instead of manually typing in the job token here, for example, we can simply reference scan1 and scan2. So this the 2 variables that we defined earlier. And as you can see here right now, for the first scan, actually, we have it's already running, and it is waited until, and it's already queued to for the publish state and also to processing the data into the software security center. But basically, now what it does, it looks for the scan status of both scans and wait until they are finished. And of course, we can also go to our web interface here to SAST, and we can see the first scan is already running. And the other scan is already completed. So here's version 4 and version 5. We can see, okay, this is already completed. And if we switch back here, We can also see, okay, here now it is completed and we just waiting until the second scan has finished. And now we see everything is finished and we can move on. And that's really powerful if you want to integrate that into CI/CD pipelines, because then it will automatically wait just until the scan is finished. So in our case for both scans, but you can also just use it for one scan, which is pretty useful. Now that you've seen many useful fcli commands, you may wonder how to best integrate fcli into CI pipelines to run automated Fortify scans. And for that, of course, you could have your pipeline invoking all the individual fcli commands that we discussed in this video, like creating a session, packaging the source code, submitting the scan request, waiting for the scan to complete, and then performing post-scan activities like checking security policies or exporting vulnerability data. However, you can also do this through just a single fcli command, which is fcli action run CI. So we designed an action called CI, which basically runs all of these tasks for you. And the good thing is, it is also configured entirely through environment variables, which makes it perfect for CI/CD systems. And to check out what kind of environment variables are available, you can also run fcli action help CI. And there you can see that we have many different environment variables that you can use, like the SSC URL, application details, and much more. And as I said, the fcli CI action automatically runs all of the necessary steps that you basically need in your CI all together. And you can also get a little bit deeper if you have a look at the definition of this action. And to do that, we can type in fcli SSC action get CI. And here you can see under the run.fcli what it actually does. And I don't want to get into all of these details right now, but as you can see, it will automatically do the setup for you, the packaging action. So it will package everything together. Then it will start the SAST scan. Then it will wait until the scan is over, download the logs, the results file, check the policy, and so on. So this is incredibly powerful. And by using this single action, you get a lot of different advantages. First of all, it provides a consistent approach for running scans and post-scan activities across different repositories and also even across different CI systems. The second advantage is it also features auto detection for various CI systems, with a current focus on GitLab and GitHub. So that means you can, for example, automatically export vulnerability data into the appropriate CI-specific report format. The third advantage is that you automatically receive new features with the new fcli versions. So, for example, in the near future, the fcli CI action will automatically be able to also run our SAST Aviator to audit all the results automatically using a large language model, just for example. And finally, it is fully customizable. So if you need to adjust it to your own needs, that's not an issue. The fcli CI action is also already being used for our latest GitLab integration, and we plan on doing the same thing for other CI integrations like GitHub and Azure DevOps. But with that, I would say thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure to talk a little bit more about fcli in combination with SSC and ScanCentral SAST. I hope this was helpful. I hope you can implement some of these things that I showed to you in your workflow, in your ecosystem, in your company. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the comment section. And if you found this video helpful, please like it and also consider to subscribe to this channel to don't miss any future video. But with that, I would say thank you very much for your time and see you in the next video.